remnants of whatever's left in the store. People might be taking targeted items such as diapers. I guess that's at least an ethical criminal who's trying to, maybe is in harm's way and needs it. I suspect the majority of people are just taking things to take things and taking things for their own to sell down the road and give out as stolen property. So what I see is the distraction from what we truly should be listening to, which is how do we deal with the issues of race and class in our society, and how do we move forward. And instead we're seeing our city, beautiful city that we were all hoping to walk through those streets very soon, that we have been putting up with enormous difficulties and challenges to keep each other healthy and safe and not infect our families. And we're seeing all of that thrown away tonight by folks going forward.
Okay, Dan, as we take a look at the live images now, it appears for the most part the crowds have gone, but you can see the damage there to those windows. We know that Boston Mayor Marty Walsh is going to be speaking tomorrow at noon. We have to assume he's going to talk with the commissioner and the governor about exactly what happened. What is going to happen tomorrow? I mean, what's the most important message that's going to come out? I'm assuming it'll be something joint from both police and the mayor.
That we're united in making sure that we keep our city safe, that we pick up the pieces of broken glass, and that we move forward through this criminal activity, and at the same time, hopefully continue a parallel conversation for the bigger issues that we need to deal with for race and class issues in our society. That just doesn't impact law enforcement, impacts the entire community we live in and how we engage each other.
Live pictures right now from Neiman Marcus, and we see right now, Nicole, what looks like law enforcement out there in front of that store. We see a lot of trash there on the ground, what looks like merchandise from inside the store. Dan Linsky, stay with us if you can. We want to try to get out to Boston 25 News reporter Lisa Pappas. Lisa, help us understand if you think that the crowds are at a level that feels safe to you, and then we can go back to Dan and see if that indicates to him that maybe we are on the back end of this winding down for the night, which is what we all obviously are hoping for.
Yeah, at least where I am, there's not a large crowd of protesters, but I'm actually going to move a little bit because there are some people that may not want to be appropriate on TV, so actually I'll just toss it back to you guys.
All right, Lisa, thank you. And when we were taking a live look at those pictures from Neiman Marcus, that was at Copley Place. I mean, there are a lot of high-end retail stores there. And as Dan just mentioned, he thinks a lot of them are looting just for the sake of looting. They're not necessarily taking anything, but the items in the store, Scott, obviously are very expensive. As we take a live look at people on the ground, it looked like there was one person walking by. Can't really see what's going on, but we did see that there was damage to that Neiman Marcus. There was damage there to the Saks, and also damage to the Adidas store on Boylston, which isn't too far there from Copley.
And I think we have Dan with us now. Dan, you still there with us?
Yes, I am.
If the crowds are diminished and dwindled and there's a lot less people on the streets, do you think that might point towards the fact that law enforcement could have a handle on this tonight?
Hopefully it is. We're also, law enforcement's got to be reaching out to the property managers, these store owners. We've got to get their personnel there. They have to secure their property. They might need to hire private security teams because law enforcement is going to have to secure it until somebody else can get there. But they need their resources to do other things, to respond to events going on around the city. So we're going to have to ask our business community to step up, bring in their personnel, secure their own locations. Maybe we supplement them with some law enforcement, but we can't keep large numbers of private businesses to secure them when we still have criminals roaming the city of Boston and things we need to do. So hopefully we can jointly work this problem together with the owners of the businesses and maybe private security officials as well.
And Dan, as we get an update from state police, who we know are assisting Boston police right now, they had also mentioned that they weren't going to lose the perimeter around the State House, and they just announced that they've made a second arrest. The first was for somebody trying to jump the fence. It appears a second protester tried to jump the fence outside there. So I guess my question to you is, when would it be safe for Boston police to leave this area? I mean,
you don't know. Okay. I can't give you that answer. That's got to be an evaluation that the on-scene commander looks at everything that's going on. And I can tell you that, in past experience, it's usually a couple of hours after it's safe. You finally let people go because you're waiting to see if the shoe's going to drop on the other foot. But there's no science to this. It's you respond as you have to. It looks to me like they might suspect they have somebody inside that facility, and they brought a canine that's going to do an entry in that mall area. So they're going to be busy for a few more hours here, and hopefully put the genie back in the bottle. But there's no, maybe some of the resources can be let go if the neighborhood that they're in is quiet. But you need to have abundance of resources available in case other violent activity occurs, and you need to move resources to deal with it.
All right. Our security analyst, Dan Linsky. Dan, thank you so much. It's now 12:30 this Sunday morning. You're watching Boston 25 News. It's a day that started with thousands of people involved in a peaceful protest, several peaceful demonstrations that kicked off around 3 p.m. Thousands of people walking down the streets of Boston. It stayed peaceful until about 7, 8, 9 p.m. where things started to turn. Since then, we have seen looting, the destruction of property, police targeted by thrown bottles, police SUV set ablaze. Nicole, our reporters have been out there with maybe 4 or 5, 6 stores, Saks Fifth Avenue, a Walgreens, a Macy's, a Men's Warehouse, all looted, and we've all seen that in the last 3 hours.
Now, the areas you're talking about, Scott, I mean, that's the Copley, that's the Prue, that's Downtown Crossing. There are so many stores within that marketplace for people to have access to. And the other thing that we were talking about, too, as well, was just Boston police response. It clearly went from peaceful all day, and everybody was commenting on social media here in the newsroom. Wow, Boston is doing a great job of getting this message across, because, of course, the message was supposed to be for Black Lives Matter. It was in response to the wrongful death of George Floyd in Minneapolis. And then all of a sudden, as the crowds began to disperse and Boston police made their presence known to get the crowds out of there, that is when we saw things starting to go south. And we want to take a look now. Mass Transit Police just posting these pictures on Twitter. You can see the Boston police vehicle there, the windows smashed in, the windshield smashed in, the graffiti on the door. We were watching live as that car was parked along the street. They were opening the doors, trying to trash it, and then they eventually set it on fire.
Do we have the video of the Boston police SUV set on fire, guys? If we do, let's try to get that going. That was something we saw live on the air, Nicole, as we look at this image of the destruction to that property, the Boston police SUV. Here it is on fire. We saw that SUV. We saw agitators out kicking in the windows, and you had some reporting on that situation, right, earlier today. You still have that, Nicole?
Yeah, so I believe in the pictures that the Mass Transit Police just sent out, you saw the transit police car that was damaged and the Boston police car that was damaged.
Right.
When Mass State Police gave us an update earlier tonight, they had mentioned that both a BPD and Transit PD car were seen coming down Beacon Street in front of the State House, and they said that was for a report of an officer down. Now, I want to mention we haven't gotten any more information about that, so we don't know if an officer was hurt or if it was just a preliminary call that came in. But that was why we saw these two cruisers coming down Beacon Street. And now we're seeing these images of the Boston police car and the transit police car with the damage here. And state police telling us that these two basically got stopped in the crowd, and they managed to somehow get through. And then they managed to get the transit police officer out so that he wasn't hurt, but they had mentioned that there was damage. So I don't know if these were the two cars in particular that they had mentioned that were responding to the officer down, but they did say that 2 cars did have heavy damage as they were trying to respond to a possible emergency.
Looting. We can take you to the Neiman Marcus now. We do know that there was looting that happened at Saks Fifth Avenue, at a Walgreens, at a Macy's, a Men's Warehouse. This is the scene now live outside of a Neiman Marcus, right? So when it comes to the crowds, Nicole, we've seen them diminish greatly over the last couple of hours. We saw massive crowds earlier in the day, and those folks, peaceful protesters, that shifted to smaller groups of agitators and opportunists as described by some of our reporters out there, taking advantage of smashed windows in stores and going in and stealing merchandise.
And this Neiman Marcus, of course, is right there in Copley Place. I mean, it is connected to so many other high-end stores. This is a popular retail area. as we're taking a live look here. And we still have our security analyst, Dan Linsky, here with us. And Dan, you had mentioned by seeing the canine, that might indicate that possibly someone is in there. I mean, would the officers go in, or is that the purpose of having the canine there?
You would send the canine in first with the canine handler. He'd be supported by a couple of officers as well because it's a large area to secure. But the dogs are pretty good at determining if someone's inside and hiding. And usually you let people know, do a call out, make sure that if they want to give themselves up, they have the opportunity.